Starting with technology, here are some noteworthy inventions created during the Industrial Revolution. Starting in 1844, Samuel Morse developed the telegraph. The telegraph was the first step in revolutionizing long-distance communication. Next, we have the Bessemer process, created in 1855. Henry Bessemer discovered a method to turn iron into steel for lower cost than ever before. In 1887, Alexander Bell created the telephone. This invention was the first of its kind. The telephone allowed for an individual to transmit sound through a wire or radio to another person from any distance. Just 3 years later, Thomas Edison created the first light bulb. In 1903, Henry Ford created the first affordable car called the Model T for everyday people. Next, we have natural resources. Natural resources played a major role in the Industrial Revolution. Coal, iron, and gold were key factors in building factories, railroads, and creating items to sell in foreign markets. The Transcontinental Railroad was a railroad linking America's east and west coast. It made its first appearance in the early 1830s. The need for such a link was dramatized by the discovery of gold in California in 1848 that brought thousands to the west coast. At the time, only two routes to the west were available, one by wagon across the plains or ship. Traveling either of these could take up to 4 months or more to complete. The business leaders of the Industrial Revolution include some of the most important names that are talked about even to this day. Though some may have benefited society and were considered captains of industry, there were also some who were robber barons or businessmen who were involved in unethical and monopolistic practices. Here are some of the most successful businessmen. Andrew Carnegie, a self-made man who made his fortune through steelworks, who was considered a captain of industry, who sold all of his steelwork business instead of keeping it. Another is John Rockefeller, an industrialist who made his fortune through the oil business, who wound up giving away half of his fortune away, and he was considered a captain of industry as well. J.P. Morgan was one of the most successful bankers to live. He financed railroad companies and helped organize the steel industry, though he is considered a robber baron. Jay Gould was a United States financier who caused a financial panic in 1869 when he attempted to corner the gold market. He is also considered a robber baron. Henry Ford was an American industrial leader. He introduced the technique of the assembly line with the production of the Model T. He is also considered a captain of industry. Urbanization had both positive and negative effects on society. First, we will start with the negatives. For housing, you had tenements located in the slums of the city that made up for overcrowded, unsafe, and overall unhealthy living and working conditions. People lived here due to low wages and cheap rent. Some positives that came out of urbanization were developments in technologies. Developments such as elevators to get to different levels of a building, the construction of skyscrapers to shelter more people by building vertically, and the creation of sewage systems to deal with the waste from the massive population. Another thing to come out of urbanization is the expansion of education. More schools and libraries had opened to educate the youth and young adults. Immigration can be classified into two types, new and old. New immigrants came to America from areas that had not traditionally supplied settlers to the U.S. The lands of Southern Europe and Eastern Europe, such as Italy, Russia, Poland, and Greece, as well as China and Japan, while old immigration consists of settlers from Northwest Europe. Along with immigration came laws. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 prohibited all immigration of Chinese laborers. The National Origins Act of 1924 and 1929 were laws that severely restricted immigration by establishing a system of national quotas that blatantly discriminated against immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe. Reactions to the Industrial Revolution are presented in the Gragner movement, such as railroad practices, Gragner state laws, and Munn versus Illinois. Unionism was an important thing with how society reacted to the Industrial Revolution. Movements such as Knights of Labor and the American Federation of Labor were created along with the idea of collective bargaining. Early reformers in the American Industrial Revolution exposed the ways of illegal rings and people who just wanted to help newly arriving immigrants. Thomas Nast, an American illustrator, is best known for his clever and forceful political and personal cartoons, which were instrumental in breaking the corrupt tweed ring in New York City. Jane Addams, a pioneer in social reform who founded the Hull House, the first settlement house in the United States to serve immigrant families who came to Chicago in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.